Hey, what's happening, guys? What's cracking? What's going on YouTube? You guys have tuned into Rules for Rebels. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Bitcoin. We're going to be talking about Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger's recent comments about Bitcoin at the annual Berkshire Hathaway annual shareholders meeting, which happened this Saturday. There's not a ton of exciting stuff going on in the news cycle right now, but this seems to be kind of the big story in crypto, as well as, all the investment and financial kind of YouTube channels are talking about this, and people always seem to get really riled up whenever Warren Buffett says anything negative about Bitcoin. So that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. Before we kind of really launch into that, I just had to give a quote that Charlie Munger had, and I thought this was funny. In my life, I try to avoid things that are stupid and evil and make me look bad in comparison to somebody else. And Bitcoin does all three, Munger said. In the first place, it's stupid because it's likely to go to zero. Very subjective. There's plenty of arguments to be made against Bitcoin, but it's going to go to zero because I said so. It's evil because it undermines the Federal Reserve System. I mean, I think a lot of people, myself included, would consider the Federal Reserve System itself to be evil. So something that upends the Federal Reserve System would be a good thing, in my opinion. And third, it makes us look foolish compared to the communist leaders in China. He was smart enough to ban Bitcoin in China. So, Charlie Munger is kind of championing and cheering on authoritarianism, something that takes banks, takes banking out of everyone's pocket, right? That was one of the big selling points of Bitcoin and crypto as a whole is we don't need Visa, we don't need MasterCard, we don't need HSBC, Chase Bank, JP Morgan. Bitcoin puts a bank in the pockets of people who are unbanked. And even though, in the West, in Australia, Canada, the US, we're kind of spoiled in the amount of financial services we have available to us. We got brick and mortar banks, we got online banks, we got high interest bank accounts, we got PayPal, Venmo, Zelle. We have all these choices, but it remains that 94% of the world is unbanked. So if you want to go to Southeast Asia, a good portion of Africa, a lot of people don't have banking, and crypto puts banking in people, crypto puts a bank in everybody's pocket, essentially, and a bank that can't be controlled by a third party. None of this is really anything new. Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger have always been against Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. It's not really a surprise. I mean, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency disrupt the current system. The current system has been very good to them, so they wouldn't necessarily want to disrupt that. Also, Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger are incredibly rich, right? So Bitcoin is oftentimes seen as something that gives a little bit more power to the little guy. They're not the little guy. It's something that disrupts the current system. They don't necessarily want the current system disrupted. And they're both very conservative investors, right? Like Warren Buffett's investing in Coca-Cola and Kraft and Dividend Kings and things like that. And he just doesn't, he's got enough money. He doesn't necessarily need a risky or speculative asset. Whereas a lot of normal people, a lot of younger people are looking to kind of give themselves a leg up or take a risk that may wind up paying out well in the long term. So we're going to hop into all of this. Before we get into all of this, today's video is sponsored by Voyager Digital. You can buy and sell over 60 different cryptocurrencies. You can earn interest on over 30 different cryptocurrencies. And just for signing up, you can get $25 in free Bitcoin if you use my referral link, my affiliate link in the description box below. In full disclosure, I will also get $25 in free Bitcoin, but so will you. So today's article comes to us from CNBC. Warren Buffett gives his most expansive explanation for why he doesn't believe in Bitcoin. Bitcoin has steadily been gaining acceptance from the traditional finance and investment world in recent years, but Warren Buffett is sticking to his skeptical stance on the cryptocurrency. He said at the Berkshire Hathaway shareholder meeting on Saturday that it's not a productive asset and it doesn't produce anything tangible. Despite a shift in public perception about Bitcoin, Buffett still wouldn't buy it. And what he's saying is, if you were to buy Philip Morris or Altria or any number of other companies, you're going to earn a dividend. Those companies are actually making something. They're actually producing something. And Bitcoin in and of itself, I'm not going to say there's no utility to it because I'm a big believer in Bitcoin. Like I already explained at the beginning of this video, it puts a bank account in everybody's pocket. I think the fact that marketplaces like Algorand or like Agora, Silk Road, etc., the fact that illegal drug marketplaces were able to operate And for years at a time, and millions of people could conduct transactions that Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, Venmo, Zelle would never allow. I think that in and of itself shows kind of the decentralized power of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and blockchain and the Tor network. So I think that in and of itself kind of shows the power and utility of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. But in terms of an asset, there's no interest, there's no dividend simply for holding Bitcoin. Now, one thing that Warren Buffett didn't really touch on, or maybe he touches on it later in this article, but obviously, there are sites like BlockFi, even Voyager. I think Voyager is paying over 4% interest on Bitcoin you leave with them. I think most cryptocurrency exchanges are paying interest on Bitcoin at this point. So it's not a completely unproductive asset, but that's something that's kind of, I think Warren Buffett even maybe addressed that and said it's something that's relatively newer. It's not necessarily stable. A lot of people don't know about it. But yes, you can earn interest on Bitcoin by giving it to a third party. So I guess in that sense, Bitcoin itself isn't a productive asset, but you can kind of turn it into a productive asset. He says, whether it goes up or down in the next 5 or 10 years, I don't know, but the one thing I'm pretty sure of is that it doesn't produce anything, Buffett said. It's got a magic to it, and people have attached magic to a lot of things. Even Bitcoin enthusiasts tend to regard the cryptocurrency as a passive asset that investors buy and hold and hope to see an increase in price over a long period. Buffett himself commented that there's nobody that's short on Bitcoin. Everybody is a long-term holder. Now, I would disagree with that. There's definitely people who short Bitcoin. There's definitely people who do leverage trading in short Bitcoin. There's definitely people who, like Bitcoin in the short term, but feel that in the long term, some other cryptocurrency will surpass it. So I don't think it's fair to say that there are no short-term or mid-term investors. When you look at the stock market, the vast majority of stock market investors are buy and hold investors. I mean, 401ks, what do you think 401ks are? They're long-term investments. So I wouldn't necessarily differentiate between a stock and Bitcoin in that sense. For more sophisticated crypto investors, some coins offer a way for them to use their cryptocurrency productively, either through lending or as collateral or to create additional portfolio benefits. However, they're still young, they're highly speculative, and haven't broken into the mainstream like Bitcoin. And I think you might be referring to things like, you can stake a lot of coins. You can stake Cardano. I think you earn 5.15% or 5.25% at this point. There's a lot of other coins that you can stake. Then you have coins like the Cake coin, which is kind of the native coin of the Binance Smart Chain Pancake Swap. But again, a lot of these things are things that your average new person to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency isn't necessarily investing. And I have kind of a funny story. So probably sometime in the past week or two, my mom texted me and she said, I'm going to some type of talk or lecture on Bitcoin. I'm not sure if it was through the Park District or the library or something like that. I had actually thought about going. I had some stuff going on. My mom and her friend wound up going to the thing, and I guess the guy running it was some type of Bitcoin consultant. And I'm sure you guys are thinking, oh, was he going to pitch all these old people who want to learn about Bitcoin some scam? I guess the guy's a consultant, but he wasn't pitching anything. He wasn't trying to sell anything. He was just trying to educate people on Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, what it is. A lot of older people, a lot of people who are in the more traditional asset classes now these days are starting to get interested in Bitcoin and want to learn more about it. And my mom said it was kind of funny. She said it was everybody was in their 60s and above. And I guess this guy had this, obviously had some type of slideshow presentation, and I guess he had all this stuff he wanted to go through. He wanted to talk about hot wallets, cold wallets, DeFi, NFT, how blockchain works, cryptocurrency, altcoins. He had this schedule of all these things he wanted to go through, and my mom said 2 hours into this presentation, it was basically still people like, so what do you mean it doesn't exist? I can't see it. I can't hold it. So pretty much for the entire 2 hours. She said he did get through some of the stuff. She said, but pretty much even at the end of the 2 hours, people were still coming back to kind of trying to understand the concept that Bitcoin isn't a physical or tangible thing, which is kind of crazy because when you think about it, I mean, I get these people, are older and maybe not as hip to technology and maybe have a harder time wrapping their head around new things and new ways of doing things. Probably, in the same way that a lot of us, myself included, have a hard time wrapping our heads around NFTs, or at least the current NFT landscape right now, where like really who gives a shit about holding a JPG image, right? Like that doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't get me excited. But maybe for Gen Zers or even younger kids, the idea of digital art is just as attractive as physical art. I'm getting off on a little bit of a tangent here, but I thought that was kind of interesting. Back to the article. If you said for a 1% interest in all the farmland in the United States, pay our group $25 billion, I'll write you a check this afternoon, Buffett said. $25 billion, I now own 1% of the farmland. If you offer me 1% of all the apartment houses in the country and you want another $25 billion, I'll write you a check. It's very simple. Now, if you told me that you own all the Bitcoin in the world and you offered it to me for $25, I wouldn't take it because what would I do with it? Now, he's being somewhat facetious here. I mean, obviously, if somebody offered you all the Bitcoin in the world for $25, you could obviously buy it all, start selling it, and see a multi-1,000% increase in revenue. So the idea that anybody wouldn't take this deal is kind of silly, and Buffett's kind of talking out of his ass. But Buffett doesn't buy gold either. Buffett doesn't buy non-productive assets, and he doesn't buy things he doesn't understand. Now, Warren Buffett doesn't understand Bitcoin, and Bitcoin, at least the way Warren Buffett sees it, is not a productive asset. I'd have to sell it back to you one way or another. It isn't going to do anything. The apartments are going to produce rent, and the farms are going to produce food. Investors for years have been puzzled over how to value Bitcoin, in part because of its potential to serve different functions. In Western markets, it's been established as an investment asset, particularly in the past year, as rates and inflation have been on the rise. In other markets, people still see enormous potential for its use as digital cash. And here's something interesting about this. So how do you value Bitcoin? But you could say, in the early days of the internet, people didn't know how to value the internet or how to value websites. There's a famous story of pets.com and how much pets.com wound up selling for, even though there was really nothing behind it. And then it wound up, that was basically one of the big things with the collapse of the dot-com bubble. But when something completely new and revolutionary comes on the scene, people don't know how to value it because they don't necessarily know the full potential of it. It hasn't reached its full potential. They don't know how it's going to play out. So I don't necessarily think it's crazy that people don't know how to value Bitcoin, because in the early days of the internet, people clearly didn't know how to value websites or web businesses or the internet. Assets, to have value, have to deliver something to somebody, and there's only one currency that's accepted. You can come up with all kinds of things. We can put up Berkshire coins, but in the end, this is money, he said, holding up a $20 bill. And there's no reason in the world why the United States government is going to let Berkshire money replace theirs. Now, if you look at, the U.S. has been printing insane amounts of money. They kind of denied that was a reason for inflation, even though we all kind of knew that was a reason for the inflation we're seeing. The government has finally kind of admitted that. But the idea that the Federal Reserve or the U.S. government is a good person to be in control of the money supply doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And it's really in large part kind of the U.S. military and the violence we're willing to inflict on other leaders or other countries that maintains the dollar's dominance. If you look at Saddam Hussein wanted to kind of unite the Middle East to get on a gold standard or move to like a gold-backed petrodollar. What happened? We invaded him, killed him, even though he really had nothing to do with Osama bin Laden or 9/11, and there were no weapons of mass destruction. If you look at Omar Gaddafi, same thing. He wanted to unite North Africa to create kind of a gold standard or a gold-backed petrodollar. What did we do to him? We killed him. So that's kind of why the dollar has maintained its dominance. I think we're starting to see right now that the dollar is losing its dominance, and it looks like the petrodollar may be a thing of the past within the next few years. And the USA is going to be in a whole lot of trouble when that happens. But one thing you can say about Bitcoin is people do assign value to it, and that's the whole reason that any paper actually has any value or is money. And besides the fact that people place value in it, there can only ever be 21 million, and it's outside the control of any third parties who may have their own biases, their own motives, etc. Back into the article, both Buffett and Charlie Munger have made hostile comments towards Bitcoin in the past. Most famously, Buffett said Bitcoin probably rat poison squared. Munger doubled down on that sentiment Saturday. In my life, I try to avoid things that are stupid and evil and make me look like a bad person in comparison to somebody else, and Bitcoin does all three, Munger said. In the first place, it's stupid because it's likely going to zero. That remains to be seen. Nobody can necessarily say that for sure. It's evil because it undermines the Federal Reserve System. Again, I think to most people that would be a good thing. And third, it makes us look foolish compared to a leader in China. I think if you are praising Chinese communist authoritarian leaders who are locking people in their houses right now, and look at, Justin Trudeau was praising Chinese leaders in China as a country for their authoritarianism. And when he showed up to, was it the G7 or the EU summit or whatever that was, everybody kind of took him down a peg and didn't even want to be in a room with him for praising that type of thing. So I think Charlie Munger has made himself look like the bad guy in this situation. But nonetheless, Charlie Munger goes on to say he was smart enough to ban Bitcoin in China. So we're 15 minutes into this. This was kind of meant to be a quick video, so we're going to wrap this one up. Let me know your guys' thoughts on this. What do you think about Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger's comments on Bitcoin? What do you think of Bitcoin as a whole? Are you still as bullish on Bitcoin today as you were in 2017, as you were in 2019, as you were 6 months ago? What do you think the U.S. economy has in store for us? Are we heading into a recession? Are we already in a recession? And how will Bitcoin play out and react to all of that? As always, would love to hear your comments on all of these things. So go ahead and drop a comment in the comment section below. If you're not subscribed to the channel, click the subscribe button down below. Ring the bell. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later, guys.